This video is brought to you in collaboration with WoWhead.com.
Hello everyone! The story of Stromgarde that takes us back to the very origins of the humans. Once upon a time, the Vrykul were hit by the curse of flesh, a curse designed by the old god Yogg-saron to make them more vulnerable to their corruption. It made the keeper's creations mortal, and over time literally gave them flesh, similar to how the gnomes and the dwarves came to be. The Vrykul, led by King Yogg-saron at the time, they were ordered to murder their malformed offspring, but not all of them could bring themselves to kill their innocent children. Instead, they sought to hide them in a place of legends, a land far to the south where other Vrykuls were hanging out, a land known as Tirisfal. Over thousands of years, humanity flourished in the eastern kingdoms, living in separate tribes, constantly warring with each other over land and by extension over power. Only one tribe, the Arathi, led by Thoras, they saw the error of their ways. They knew that if mankind remained divided, it would stand little chance against a true war against the Amani trolls, who at the time were living to the north. They took it upon themselves to unite the rivaling clans, be it by diplomacy or force. In just a couple of years, Warlord Thoras, he brought the other clans to heel. Much to the surprise of those he had defeated, Thoras, he did not reign as a tyrant. He offered his former enemies peace and equality in what he claimed would be a glorious new human nation, a united kingdom of limitless potential. The tribal leaders would not fade into obscurity. They would serve as honored generals. With these acts, Thoras won the loyalty of his adversaries and was crowned king with his new kingdom named Arathi. With the human tribes united, King Thoras set out to find a new capital. According to one legend, he discovered his answer in a dream. In it, he saw his father wearing the pelt of a black wolf. He told Thoras of an arid land southeast of Tirisfal Glades. If the king would build his capital there, his people would prosper. Thoras sought out the land from his dream, a region known today as the Arathi Highlands. As the story goes, the king spied a black wolf roaming the barren terrain. On that spot, Thoras used his weapon to carve out the boundaries of his city in the dirt. Then he set his masons to work. So it was that Strom arose, mighty capital of the first human kingdom. He also ordered his people to build a great wall near the capital to further shield them from Amani incursions. Words of Strom's might it quickly spread amongst the other human tribes, which in turn motivated them to sign up and enjoy the safety of numbers. Thoras, as it turned out, was wise to unite his people, as the Amani trolls they were indeed a great threat, not just to humanity, but also the high elves living within Quel'thelas. They sought the aid of the humans, as without assistance from Arathi, the trolls would soon enough destroy Quel'thelas, and after that launched their full might against Strom itself. Thoras and his advisors, they discussed the situation, and they figured that if they were taught the ways of magic, it might give them the edge that they needed to truly make an impact in the war. Their offer was in exchange for the military aid. The High Elves would teach the humans magic. Knowing that they had little choice, they agreed to tutor the 100 humans in the ways of magic. Their allegiance during these so-called troll wars, it would prove devastating for the Amani trolls, and while hard-earned, victory was theirs. For months, humans and elves celebrate the victory, and the elves, they pledged their undying loyalty to Arathi and to Thoras' descendants. Now after King Thoras' reign had ended, new generations of humans, they expanded the nation in size and power. The once united Arathi Empire, it turned into the 7 kingdoms, namely Lordaeron, Dalaran, Gilneas, Quel'thelas, Alterac and Stormwind, with the former capital Strom fearing that they'd lose control. Fearing that the other settlements would become too independent. And they would be right. Strom was no longer the center of the human lands, left in the hands of a few ruling families, too stubborn to abandon their old capital. Among them were the descendants of Igneous Trollbane, a general who became a legend during the Troll Wars. Over the years, these families they rebuilt Strom's crumbling infrastructure, and they renamed the capital to Stromgarde. The city, however, it would never regain its former glory, and Thoras' dream of a unified people was dying. Over generations, the various states became increasingly distant and insular. Rivalries emerged as these nations turned inwards, concerned with their own well-being and less inclined to offer aid to each other. But the opening of the Dark Portal and the coming of the Horde, they would quickly change that mindset. As for the fate of Azeroth and all their individual kingdoms, they had to come together under a single banner once more. Stormwind was the first to fall to the might of the Horde. And Lothar, he took Prince Varian and their survivors across the sea to Lordaeron to spread this news of this alien threat. The Alliance of Lordaeron was formed, a union of the different leaders. In this time, we had King Terenas of Lordaeron, King Gen Greymane of Gilneas, Lord Admiral Dalen Proudmoore of Quel'thelas, Archmage Antonidas of Dalaran, King Aidan Paranold of Alterac, and King Thoras Trollbane of Stromgarde. Now, not all of them were down with this allegiance right away. People like Greymane and Paranold, they were quite hesitant to sign up, but in the end, all of them were convinced that this was for the best for their people. Their united forces, they took on this savage horde. The war did not play out without complications though. Paranold, he was foolish enough to betray the alliance, sell them out to save his own skin by offering the horde free passage through his lands. Thoras Trollbane figured out what was going on, and he wasn't too happy about it. He took command of their forces stationed in the mountains, and made sure that the rest of the horde would be stopped from reaching Lordaeron, while Paranold, he was a problem to deal with after the war. After they won the impossible battle against the savage horde, they pushed them back to Blackrock Mountain, and then, with the war chief on his knees, back to the Dark Portal. Those that surrendered were spared an immediate death and were placed within internment camps, while the Dark Portal, that was shut down. However, they were unable to completely sever the connection though, but those were problems for another day. First, they had to deal with their prisoners and their betrayers. The fate of the orcs that surrendered, that was quite a point of debate. Some just wanted to outright execute them, but instead they decided to place them within those internment camps, overseen by Danav Trollbane. Danav is the cousin of Thoras, and had proven himself to be a great tactician and fighter in the war. If he could maintain control over the camps, then that would be the place where the orcs would stay. If not, the allies would revisit executing the orcs. Now Danav, he oversaw all of the camps, but of course running all of them, it was a job too great for just one man, so it was that he delegated command to the Second War highest ranking veterans, meaning that the quality of life in the camps, it was vastly different. In some cases, execution might have even been the kinder alternative, and of course these camps, they didn't come cheap. Gold was asked from all alliance members, which some could not really appreciate. Then, the situation with Paranold, that was rather dicey, as most of his citizens, they didn't know what the leader had been up to, and just invading his lands wasn't really an option. Execution or imprisonment, that might send off the wrong signals to the remaining leaders of the alliance, so for now, they placed him under house arrest, while trying to come up with some sort of solution. The idea of Terenas or Trollbane taking over the land, that had been suggested, but before anything like that could even go down, the horde had already returned for another invasion. This time, they did not come to try and claim the world. This time, they showed up to steal powerful artifacts, which in turn would allow them to open up more portals to different worlds. The Alliance, or the Sons of Lothar as they now called themselves, eventually figured out what their plan was, and they decided that the horde had to be stopped once and for all. Led by Trellian, Alaria Windrunner, Khadgar, Kurner Wildhammer, and Danav Trollbane, they stepped through the Dark Portal and were eventually forced to shut it down from Draenor's side to make sure that the destruction of the planet, its transformation into Outland as we know it today, that wouldn't spill over into Azeroth. We wouldn't hear from our heroes for quite some time, while life on Azeroth, that went on. History would repeat itself, as without the threat of the Horde, the Alliance started to splinter. The small disagreements about land, power and money that would soon enough cause them to withdraw from each other, some taking it as far as building a mighty wall around the kingdom, but for the Trollbane, he just withdrew his support for the Alliance. Thrall would break out of his internment camp and reform the Horde. Arthas would follow the path of becoming the Lich King, murdering his own father, something that was copied by Thoras' son Galen. He murdered his father too, and took up the role as leader of Stromgarde, but he quickly found himself under attack by forces like the Boulder-Faced Ogres and the Syndicates. This is a criminal organization, originally led by Aladin Paranold, the son of that traitor. His fellow leader Lord Falconcrest led the assault on Stromgarde and was even able to claim a fair chunk of the land. All in all, the treacherous son wasn't having an easy time, and he did his very best to at least protect the Trollbane family crypt, which held several ancient artifacts. The League of Arathor was formed, based in Refugee Point. The remnants of the once proud Kingdom of Stromgarde, they would claim the Bassin to profit their allies in Stormwind, and through them, the whole of the Alliance. Set against them are the Forsaken Defilers, free-willed undead who strive to savage the human kingdom of Lordaeron and secure the home of the Undercity, and they demand Arathi's resources to do it. Horde and Alliance clash with each other in this battleground, while outside of the basin, a jungle troll named Zengu, he had set his eyes on the sword known as Trollklar, also known as Trollbane. This sword goes back to the very roots of the Trollbane lineage and earned a mighty reputation during the Troll Wars. So much so that Zengu wanted it for the Darkspear tribe, so that they in turn could use it against the trolls of Zul'Gurub, who were becoming quite a threat with their Loa Hakar. In Order of Vol'jin, he recruited Horde heroes to help him secure this blade. Several sigils were needed to remove the protections around it, one of such sigils held by none other than Galen. He was slain by the Forsaken near Foradin's wall, and the blade was claimed by the troll, but it never made its way to Vol'jin. Zengu was assassinated by Stromgarde troops when he attempted to leave Arathi, and the sigils and the sword, they were retaken. Then, with the Burning Crusade, we saw the Dark Portal reopen, and we reconnected with heroes of old, amongst them Dun Trollbane. He was still very much alive even after all this time, and fans wondered when he would return home to rebuild the ancestral capital of the humans. Hints of his return, they were dropped from time to time, but first we would see the return of Galen, resurrected by the Forsaken. He seemed to be quite loyal to Sylvanas, and to serve the Dark Lady better, he asked heroes to once again claim the sigils and go pick up Trollbane. They handed him the blade, but instead of using it to serve the Banshee Queen, he decided to rally his undead citizens and soldiers, and declared himself king of the ruined kingdom of Stromgarde. Luck does not favor this traitor, as the Knights of the Everblade, they were in need of a new horseman to help them fight in the war against the Legion. Under the command of the Lich King, they were sent to resurrect the legendary Thoras Trollbane, so their journey took to Stromgarde. Prince Galen is willing to help them gain access into the tomb, if they can help him out with his Widowbark problem by cutting down a couple of the trolls and destroying their supplies. After fulfilling his request, they return to him to hold him to his end of the bargain, but then the prince makes a foolish decision.
Stromgarde is mine at last. You are fools if you think I'll let my father have it back. Guards, seize them!
He has made a big mistake by wasting their time and trying to betray the Everblade. If he is not going to open up the tomb of his father, then they must take the sword and do it themselves.
My patience has worn thin as well. Let's find the prince and be done with this.
You are fighting against a power you cannot even comprehend.
Stromgarde is mine! I will not give it up to my father or anyone else. I am the prince! How dare you!
With the blade, they can enter the tomb and resurrect King Thoras, one of the greatest warriors this world has ever known. His people loved him, and enemies feared him. He only spoke truth, often saying the words that others were afraid to speak. He lived a life of war, and certainly deserves the peace of death. But this is not a man who would sleep peacefully while the world around him burns. The time has come to welcome the last true king of Stromgarde into the arms of the dead and the damned.
My son, where is Galen? Where is the prince who murdered his king?
We took his life, my lord. The prince left us little choice.
What has become of Stromgarde?
Death and ruin. Time has not been kind to this place.
Then I have failed as both a father and a king.
Stromgarde is lost, but there is still hope for this world, if you will join us.
I will do whatever it takes to preserve peace on Azeroth.
And so, the last true king of Stromgarde, he left his kingdom behind. But with Battle for Azeroth, Dana finally returns home. This was the staging ground for the disastrous meeting between human and Forsaken, as described within the novel Before the Storm. All the remains of the fallen are the marked graves found within the Highlands. Now with the burning of Quel'thelas and the siege of Lordaeron, we have Kalimdor and the Eastern Kingdoms that become highly contested. Undercity lies in ruins, which means that the Alliance has control over most of the Eastern Kingdoms. It's very close to falling completely, which is why the war from the Stromgarde is so important for both sides. For the Horde, it means the defense points, a buffer for Quel'thelas, and potential strike point to Gilneas. The Alliance, they find the Undercity indefensible, and holding on to Stromgarde, that will give them a staging ground to move north. Both sides fight over dominance of the land, with heroes turning in resources to support the troops to get an army going. The gameplay is very reminiscent of the days of Warcraft 3. From up above, we dive into the field down below and we lay claim to initial base. After which, our objective, it becomes gathering resources, lumber and ore. These resources can be used to upgrade the base, build new structures, recruit troops and demolishers to bring down the enemy's gate. New stats and the Circle of Elements, they can potentially be captured to unlock powerful support units, while throughout the battle, little events can spawn. For example, you could be asked to slay a great tree, or save some of your captured troops, which then will aid you in the battle, but the main road of victory, that goes through the middle. Once the gates are down, the enemy commander is the last thing standing in a way. The Alliance will face either Eitric, Lady Aldrin or Rokan.
Now, siege engines, blast down that gate! This vile orc will know the meaning of Alliance justice!
I know all about your Alliance justice! Wind Riders, show them the meaning of Horde Fury!
For the Horde, they deal with Dun Trollbane, Tyrellian or Muradin.
High Perch belongs to the Horde! Or should I say, the greenskins?
You and your kind are all the same. You'll die on your knees, just like the rest.
With the commander forced to surrender, the faction will then hold dominance over the keep. But the enemy, they do not sit still and will soon enough gather their forces and retaliate.
One
The
day,
Alliance is no match
Stromgarde
for
will
us,
belong
friend.
to the
For
Alliance
the
again.
Horde!
While waiting to do so, they can spend their time killing rares, completing some quests in the Highlands, like taking care of a pocket of remaining syndicates or Widowbar trolls, or even bring down a world boss, until the moment comes where the drums of war sound again and the Warfront repeats itself. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the story of Stromgarde, the very capital of human civilization, now a highly contested area for the Alliance and the Horde. If you want more details on all the things that we talked about today, then check out the related WoW article in the description down below. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. Subscribe if you like my videos, leave a like if you enjoyed this one, and until next time, guys, see ya!